Hi everyone, welcome back to the Lemon Abroad. Today I want to take you with me on a drive through my hometown of Burton, Ohio. Burton is a small town located in Geauga County. Geauga is a local Native American word for raccoon, so it literally means Raccoon County. Burton is quite a small town. It is just about 1 square mile in size, and there's more or less 1,000 people who live there. I didn't realize at the time what a unique experience it was to grow up in a small town like this. Of course, in the United States, there are a range of different types of cities and suburbs, but I feel like small towns like this are just a really special experience that I feel really privileged to have had a childhood growing up in a place like this. As a kid, I was always playing outside with the other children who lived in the houses around me, and we really knew all of the people who lived in our neighborhood. So, for example, when we would go trick-or-treating on Halloween, we already knew all of the different people's homes that we were going to, and I really feel like this is a kind of experience that is not that common, especially anymore. As you can see, driving into town, we are really in the countryside here. Geauga County has a few small towns and even one city, but they are really surrounded just by a lot of nature, a lot of woods, and it's really nice to go driving through the countryside. It really changes depending on what season it is. So in winter, all of these grasses would be covered with snow. In the fall, the trees would be many different colors with the falling leaves. And in spring and summer, everything is green and there's usually beautiful blue skies. This was actually during the winter time, so as you can see, it's a little gray out, but there's also the green from the pine trees. So it's always a little different depending on what season it is. As we begin to approach the town, you see that the houses become closer together and you see more and more of them as we go from the countryside into the actual village. You'll also see the water tower as we approach. This is one of the local landmarks. And actually, a few years ago, when they were deciding how to paint it, there was a debate about whether they should paint a stack of pancakes on the water tower because our town is very well known for its pancake breakfasts. This is because there are many maple trees that grow in our area, and we even have maple trees growing in the town square that are tapped for their sugar, and eventually we make maple syrup out of it. And so with all of this maple syrup, we need something to eat it with, and that's why every March there are several pancake breakfasts that are held in town. And these breakfasts raise money for local organizations who put them on, such as the high school, the fire station, and the VFW hall. Now we are coming into the town, and this is the main business district, and it's literally called Main Street. Here you'll have many different businesses, and we'll see some of them in a little bit. And up ahead of us is the water tower and the town square. So as we go around the town square, first we are going to have the firehouse, and we have the church. There is also the library, which was a really wonderful place when I was growing up. They had lots of events for the local children. We have some more businesses. Also, there is a gas station. And the town square is connected to many different state routes that go through town, so it's very common for people to pass by Burton on their way to somewhere else. There we have Century Village, which I'll show you more in a little bit, and you can see some of the historic century homes in Burton. Many of these homes are more than 150, almost 200 years old at this point, And I just love the way that they have been maintained and even updated. A lot of the color choices are really interesting. The way people have been able to hold on to the historic character while still making their homes seem very fresh and modern. Nowadays, you can actually go inside one of these homes. They have turned it into a tea parlor, and they've really hung on to the historical decorations inside. It's really cool to see what the inside of these very unique homes looks like. And of course, you can have some tea and some little treats as well. Coming back into town, we have some small businesses, the hardware store, the barber shop, and the florist. These places have been here forever, I think since I was growing up here. We also have the old post office and an old grocery store that's now the post office. There's that tiny little bank. Now, I did want to show you another way of driving into Burton, just so you could see this shot of a tractor with a bunch of hay. This is really not uncommon at all. Once you leave the residential village of Burton, you will be driving through the countryside, and there will be many farms as well as many nature reserves and just woods and things like that where you see just nature. So actually now we can head towards Middlefield. So Middlefield is the next town over from Burton. While Burton does have many things, like it has some restaurants, it has a coffee shop, it has the other small shops that I pointed out before. Anything beyond that, we would really have to go into Middlefield for example, if we wanted to go grocery shopping. Middlefield is just much larger and has more variety, and it would be the next closest major center point where we could go. So as you can see, driving into Middlefield, there is a lot of nature, and one thing that you will begin to see more is the Amish. So you'll see Amish with the Amish buggies driving on the street. If you don't know, the Amish are a kind of Anabaptist Christian group who descend from Swiss Germans who came to the United States. Actually, within their community, they do continue to speak a language that's known as Pennsylvania Dutch. That is a type of German language. Middlefield and Geauga County is considered the fourth largest Amish settlement in the world. The Amish are most known for not using electricity, which is why they have horse and buggies. As you can see, we even have horse and buggy parking at the grocery store. The Amish also have a unique style of dress, so you can recognize them when you are in a shop or out and about. I actually went to school with a few Amish people, and I think this is something that is a very unique experience, but again, I didn't realize it at the time. It was really amazing to be able to see into another community and another way of life, especially one that just by virtue of their style of living is more isolated from the rest of the community. So the reason we were going to Middlefield was to visit White House Chocolates. White House Chocolates is our favorite chocolate place. They make all of these chocolates by hand. They make chocolate-covered Oreos, chocolate-covered pretzels, chocolate-covered graham crackers, even chocolate-covered Rice Krispies. They also have fudge. Of course, they have maple because we're in Geauga County. We also went back at Easter, so they had everything decorated for that holiday. They even had chocolate-covered Peeps and saltwater taffy. Going back into town, I wanted to show you all the old high school. This was actually the junior-senior high school when I was living there. And we also had the football field right there in town. So it was very small town America. You know, people coming out for the football games and cheering on the team. My elementary school was also in town at the time, and it was just really nice having the schools inside the village because it meant that kids could walk to school and would just be out and about in the town. And it really gave more of a community feel deal. Recently, they've relocated the schools out of town, and while of course I don't live here anymore, I do think it is a shame to not have the schools actually inside the village anymore. But again, I do think that all of this does just lend to the nostalgia of growing up in this kind of idyllic small town atmosphere. Here we can see the maple trees in the town square and the log cabin where they make the maple syrup and maple sugar. And they make maple sugar candy, which is just delicious. For more traditional products, we always like to go to Sunrise Farm on the outskirts of Burton. They always have a lot of cute seasonal gifts and seasonal activities, like this was in the fall, so they had pumpkins, and they also have a pumpkin patch, for example, or I remember growing up having a corn maze. They also have a lot of nice gifts for the home. They also have rock candy and this stick candy, which I remember having growing up. Probably the best thing you could get there, in my opinion, is some apple butter and pumpkin butter. This is homemade and it's very traditional of the area. I like to put both of them on toast, for example, and they're both very seasonal, and it just is something that always reminds me of home. Next, I'd like to take you to a very special place, and that is Century Village. Century Village, as you can see, is basically a village within the village. So there are several real buildings that were brought here to represent how a traditional village of this area would look in the 1800s. There is the schoolhouse, an apothecary shop, a dressmaker shop. There's a general store, and down the street there's also a blacksmith area. There's also a train station and a caboose as well. Century Village is open to just walk around, but throughout the year they have many events, some of which you can actually go inside some of these buildings. And many of the events are historically themed, where it can give you an example of living during this time period. Century Village also hosts an apple butter festival every year, which is really fun, where they make fresh apple butter. It also has a beautiful lookout, and you can also sometimes find some animals there as well. Now, the last stop on our tour of Burton is going to be one of the most important places, and that is the fairgrounds. They have been holding the Great Geauga County Fair here since 1823, and it is Ohio's oldest county fair. So many people come from all over the state of Ohio to this fair. It is held every year over Labor Day weekend in September. And it is such a big deal that while most schools in the area would start the school year in August, our school district would actually wait until after Labor Day to begin school because so many people would be involved in stuff going on at the fair. There were a lot of different activities for kids to be involved in, a lot of like 4-H activities that included raising animals. That was really not for me, but I did do 4-H square dancing for a while, and we were actually the state champions. There were some events here at this pond for fishing and even a demolition derby. There would be all kinds of different activities, games, and rides that you could go on. There would be a lot of different fair food, such as, French fries with malt vinegar, snow cones. Corn dogs were my favorite before I became a vegetarian. There would also be fresh milkshakes from the dairy cows. Yes, they really would be milking the cows right there at the fair. There were also funnel cakes and cotton candy and just a lot of wonderful fried, sweet, and salty things. So that is it for today. Thank you so much for coming along with me on this tour of my hometown. I hope I was able to convey to you just how wonderful it was to grow up in small town America. I feel like, especially in the era in which I grew up in the 90s, it was just such a different time. It really does lend itself to a certain type of nostalgia and really wonderful memories to hang on to. And looking back, I'm just so grateful that I got to experience this type of community when I was growing up. It is certainly not something that everyone will have the opportunity to experience. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Ciao, ciao.